Welcome to the Big Woods Bucks podcast. I'm your host, Hal Blood. Sitting here with my co-host, Good Lee Shands.
Good morning, everybody.
All right. Is it still morning?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Doesn't matter. They might listen to it in the morning.
Yeah, that's right. And guest today is Brian Donaghy and Cassie Lacombe from Unity. No.
Palermo, but
Palermo.
Same difference. I lived
Close
in
enough.
Unity for a long time.
Down east, mid-coast.
Yeah.
Whatever. And we're going to talk a little hunting. Brian's a guide, traps, taxidermist, jack of all trades. And they have a business, two businesses, I guess. Taxidermy and what's your other business, Cassie? Come on.
It's Maine Wild Harvest Company.
That's right. Maine Wild Harvest Company. And good entrepreneurship right there. That's what I say.
You got to keep busy,
Get an
right?
idea and how'd that start out? Just because trapping stuff and wanting to do something with it? And
Yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Yep, pretty much.
Chaga is what kind of kicked it off from us spending time in the woods, putting trail cameras up during the off season and marking chaga on onyx. And
you do that too?
yeah,
Yeah.
and we started quite the collection of chaga. I mean, and we drank it ourselves, but we got so much to the point where it's like, maybe we should sell this.
Yeah.
And then the same thing kind of fast forwarded from trapping, that we would have so many furs, and it's like you can only keep so many tan furs for yourself.
You start hanging them everywhere sooner or later. You're like, I could probably sell some of these, I guess.
Right. So between the chaga and the fur, we kind of thought that we could do something bigger with it and, you know, have a selling platform to sell the fur pelts, to sell the chaga tea and chaga chunks. And then we also do the hand warmers. That was because of all the beaver trapping that we did.
Yeah.
And so that was a great way to kind of use the beaver fur opposed to just keeping whole pelts, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Organic hand warmers, right?
Yes. Reusable, biodegradable, stays warm all day.
Yep.
They don't, when you put them in a landfill, they're not going to be here 10 or 20 years down the road. It's not like
Right.
plastic, you know. It's not like fake fur or hot hands or, you know.
Right. All right.
The real green.
They're green.
That's right. It's a Green New Deal.
Environmentally friendly. Beaver had to give up his life for him, but that's all right.
Yeah. We probably ate the beaver, though.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Let's see what them look like, Cassie.
All right. So we call them Allagash hand warmers.
right.
And they, like we said, reusable, sustainable, eco-friendly. And they are from the middle
Like the belly section
belly
of a
side
beaver, yeah.
of the beaver. So it's all this like beaver wool, and
Yep.
it's like the most dense part of the beaver with over 10,000 fur fibers.
It's like
per
the
square inch.
softest fur,
Yeah.
like the softest fleece type material.
And that
you've
looks
ever
like
felt,
it. Is
you
it
know?
shaved down?
It is. We
Yeah.
hand shear them, so all the guard hairs are completely removed,
Right.
and they are beyond smooth. And you just put them fur side down in your mittens or
Natural insulation
pockets.
is basically
Yeah,
all it is.
sure.
You
You
know?
can put them in your socks too.
Yeah.
They work just as well for foot
Didn't think about
warmers.
that,
Yeah.
right? Down
Oh,
in
they
your boots, yeah.
Now it's
They've
not.
saved me in the deer stand.
Yeah, it's not like, you know, if you were to put, you know, the chemical stuff like hot hands, you know, it's like instant heat. This is different. It's, you know, it's just basically putting insulation around
Yeah.
your body warmth, you know.
It's like putting a down jacket on.
Yeah,
Right.
you know,
And it
you'll
will
notice
maintain.
you put them in your mittens and 10 or 15 minutes later, your hands just aren't cold anymore. It's not like it's a heater.
Yeah.
You know, it just, my hands aren't cold anymore.
Like a
you know?
natural
And it
warmth.
just stays comfortable all day.
Yeah.
You know, if you get them wet, you want to dry them out because it's, you know, like cotton, if you got it wet and you left it wet, it would get moldy. And that's just
Right.
basically a natural material, like the leather part of it. But you just take them, dry them out at the end of the day. And
Are you guys tanning those yourself, or you send them
no,
out?
we send them to a tannery. Yeah.
So I got to
Yeah.
ask, whose idea was that?
Well, truthfully, that was probably some of her ideas. But there was a company in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was maybe what we saw maybe 4 years ago that was making them. And they had a lot of good reviews. And I said, you know, that's actually a good idea. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was around the same time I was making you a hat or something, wasn't
Yeah.
I? I was doing something. Oh, I was working on stitching a blanket, like a nice beaver blanket, and I was hand stitching it on the couch in the evenings. We'd sit there and watch Jeopardy or YouTube or whatever, and I'd have a beaver pelt on my lap while I was sitting there repairing it and stitching it by hand. And it was so warm every time. I was like, geez, like, this is too warm sitting here with a beaver pelt on my lap, you know?
Yeah.
And there was like the same time where you saw that. And I said, it makes absolute sense because I'm sweltering every time I'd have a beaver pelt, you know, on my lap stitching for half an hour, an hour.
Yeah.
But there's nobody in the United States doing it. So we come up with the idea and well, we should do it here, you know? Now it's caught on. We had it to ourselves for a couple of years, but now there's, as of about 3 months ago, there's 5 other companies copying us doing it. But
It's not like you can get a patent on it.
no, I thought about it, but I mean, it's just
considered it.
I don't. It's nice to see though. I mean, trapping these days, there's so few people doing it compared to what they're. And you know, if you look at the age class of trappers, you know, they're the true dying breed.
Right.
And so I mean, there's room for people to do that stuff. It'd just be nice to see real fur. You know, if you think about fake fur and what it takes to get, you know, if you see the jacket that someone buys at Walmart or whatever, and it's got that fake fur around the hood, I mean, or any fleece jacket you have on, I mean, that's all just plastic.
Right.
It's all
And
petroleum
it will
based.
never, ever break down. I mean, you could put fleece jacket, you throw that, I mean, I like them, but if you throw it in a landfill, I mean, 2,000 years from now, that's still going to be sitting there the same exact way as when you put it in there.
Yeah.
So
Polyester. Good
yeah,
stuff.
that's all it is. You know, this is no different than big woods wool. You know, how all the hunters that in the Northeast like wool so much. I mean, real fur is the exact same way. You know, it just works.
Nature made the best stuff.
Yeah, it is. You know, so it'd be nice to see. Yeah, there's more people doing, you know, some of the same products that we've been doing, but
the market's unlimited.
yeah,
Anywhere there's cold weather,
we
got to
get like Taylor Swift to start wearing fur or something like that, and then maybe the market would turn around. But,
Maybe you got to send her a pair.
yeah. So we
She
originally
can sit in
started.
the football stands with them. Tell them that's for your football
Seriously,
game.
yeah, Super Bowl. Yeah, just show them slipping them in their mittens during the game or something like that. Yeah, I won't be able to work for 2 weeks. We'll be so busy. No.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Good idea.
Here's a few words about our sponsors. Make sure you support these guys. They're all top notch, and they keep Big Woods Bucks going. Thank you.
Being the low-tech guy I am, there's one thing I've learned to embrace with technology, and it's my Onyx. I used to carry maps and GPS when it finally came out and stuff, but the Onyx has eliminated that because I've got my GPS in my phone now with my Onyx app. I can mark everything in that. It's helpful that I can show other people by putting a pin in if I want to send somebody to a place. Being a guide, that's important, you know. I can give them the pin, you know, put it in there, you know, I text it to them, whatever. So if you want to get your Onyx, get your Big Woods Bucks code, BWB, and get you 20% off, but I highly recommend it. Give you a little update. Skinner Sights. We all know they're the best site going, but it's a great company because Andy and the crew there are innovative and they're always thinking up either new models to make a site for, improve the sites, making mounts for scopes, and now they've come on with their own line of scopes and red dots. Whatever Andy does in the company, it's top-notch, first quality, and they stand behind everything, and we're glad to have them as a partner, and we hope you'll try their sites, and you can trust your life with those, and they're going to get you the game. So get your Skinner sites, and you can trust me that you're going to be glad you did. Just wanted to talk a little bit about minus 33 in the wool they have, which I believe is best wool going, whether it's base layers or your socks or whatever you're wearing. You got to have wool. I've been stressing that for people for years, to wear your wool, whether it's the outerwear or even your base layers and socks. I've been to the tour of the plant, see how they make their socks, and it's quality, the fit is right, and they're going to be long lasting. I've got socks I've had now for several years, and they look like I'll have them for several years more before they even think about wearing out. So I trust my life to wool, and you can too. Minus 33.
All right, back to the podcast.
But originally it was just a kind of an idea to get, you know, we had trapped quite a bit, and I used to trap an awful lot, and then I stopped trapping as much so I could go deer hunting again, because it's tough to do both.
Yeah,
You know, there
that's
was,
why I never trapped. You know,
I know there was
I go
like 10
trapping
years there
during deer
where
season. I ain't even going to think about that.
yeah,
Right. It's just the balance to do both is
yeah,
impossible almost.
But the beaver, you can get them all winter and right to
yeah,
spring.
and the
right?
spring is
Yeah.
Yeah.
you can rack up beaver a lot in the spring.
Yeah.
But I used to like trap marten and fisher, and I still do some. And but boy, my brother and I, Mark and I, we used to trap a lot. There was probably 8-10 years there where I hardly deer hunted.
Yeah.
Because I was never one that if I wanted to go trapping, it was either like all in or I just didn't do it that year.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go set 4 or 5 traps and just kind of
Didn't want to play at it.
yeah. I was either going to go and make a big catch, and when the fur prices were up, not up compared to like the 80s, but around 2010 to 2014, if there was kind of a little mini fur boom. And you could make some money. Mark and I, we used to trap for the month of November down. We'd stay down the Forks, and a guy we started guiding for originally down there, and we'd stay in one of his cabins, and we trapped for a month. We worked, back then we were working offshore on commercial fishing boats as biologists, basically. And
Is that when you did you make your video in 2010, 14?
yeah, 2000 and I think it was 2010. We used to, buy these trapping DVDs, and back then YouTube really wasn't going, so you'd get these instructional trapping DVDs, but nobody wanted to give away their secrets or whatever. So, they'd make a DVD and people would sell them for $40 a piece or whatever. But we'd buy these DVDs and then we'd get home and watch them, and half of them were just garbage, or they weren't filmed very good. You couldn't see what the person was doing, And so we were like, why don't we just make one of our own? So we just, the two of us just lugged one of them little handy cams like you used to deer hunting, and filmed a video. And we sold a lot of them. Then I don't know, it was probably 3 or 4 years after that I sold the rights to it. It was funny because just a couple of weeks ago we saw the popping up again. The
Back
guys,
on YouTube, back
yeah, he's
on
got his own
Facebook.
I think YouTube just, what I heard, I'm not positive, but I think they made so trapping can't be monetized anymore on YouTube.
Oh.
I mean, it's only a matter of time before they do it hunting, really. But so he has some other channel. It's not. I think it's through Vimeo or something.
Yeah.
Where people can pay like $100 a year, and they can watch his whole library of videos. Because I believe he was a dealer out west, and he used to sell our DVD. And then one time he went to go order some because we sold a bunch wholesale, and then we sold them retail. And I had to order them 1,000 at a time. And we had already done it once, and I didn't want to order 1,000 again, So they called me back and said, well, how about you sell the rights to me? So we did. And so I think he had done that to a lot of videos, and now he's put them out in this other.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked you about it was I just went over to my mother's last week because Dad had passed. Well, my father loved that. It drove my mother nuts, but my father would watch that
old
video all the
DVD,
time.
yeah.
So, she ended up last week when I went over to see her. She had a bunch of his books and stuff. But so if you know anybody, if you don't have any of those videos, if you know someone that wants one really bad, because I'm pretty sure I already had one, but I got my dad's now too. So.
Yeah, it was called the Maine Trap Line. It was a Maine Trap Line with Brian and Mark Donaghy. It was my twin brother and I, Mark. And we just filmed us basically for the month, and we did a lot of water trapping, a lot of otter, mink, a lot of blind sets for
It was
mink.
a good bobcat.
Yeah, we caught a couple incidental bobcats then, and the laws have changed quite a bit since then. Now we've got all these new lynx laws, so a lot of what you see that we did do in those videos, you can't do nowadays, unfortunately. Our laws in Maine have gotten really, really restrictive, unfortunately. But so you can't take it. You got to make sure if you watch it, you can't just go do the same thing that you saw.
Obey the law. Look at the laws for your state, right?
Yeah, look, we haven't had many changes recently, but it's been the same for about 10 years now.
When you trapped this year, I can remember you telling me years ago that with that lynx exclusion device that they were going to be catching a lot of the female fishes and not the males because the big males were probably not going to go in because it was pretty constrictive. Is that borne out?
Yeah, see, I think it was 2014 is when we had to start using that. And I remember I was all bummed because I just built all new boxes the year before in 13, and then all of a sudden they signed that law and we had to start using those boxes. And I didn't even trap, I think, for 2 years with them because I didn't think they would work. But they do work. It's just a pain. I've caught some big males in them. I got males that were like 14 and a half pounds. And those were, I guess, big woods. areas that were, north of here. And that's about as big as a fisher as you'll get up there. Once you go further south in Adirondacks, Pennsylvania, you might get a 16, maybe even an 18-pound fisher once in a while, but it's kind of like the 50-pound coyote. When you actually put them on a scale, they don't weigh what people think they weigh. But yeah, the big males will go into them. And there's two designs. You can use one where they have a side entrance and a baffle in them. You can put a bigger trap, 160 or a 220 size trap, which is 6x6 or 7x7. But the straight design, which you can put only up to a 5x5 inch trap in, works even better. But you just orient your hole so it's like a diamond. So you can only have a 4x4 inch hole on the end of it. But you orient it like a diamond, and then basically from point to point is 5.5 that way, because the law doesn't tell you which way you can orient your hole. It just says you can't have a bigger opening than 4x4 inches.
Probably shouldn't have said that. They'll probably change the law.
There's so few trappers out there doing it, honestly, right now. And the fisher population, since that law has come into effect, is just exploding. Like, there's so many fish around now. I mean, anybody that tracks bucks up across mountains around here and must see realize it.
Well, that and during moose season, we're seeing them, run across the road in front of you all the time.
Yeah, all the
Right.
time. Yeah, and guys that are baiting bears, I mean, every bait will will have 2-3 fish on them. And some of them at the same time. I saw a picture that had like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And and I think that has probably hurt a lot of the marten population now because they all compete with each other. And I would imagine a fisher would probably, eat any marten they could get a hold of too. But yeah, no, they do work. It's just a pain. Usually when I did my guided trips there on trapline trips, usually we would set 160 of those boxes out. So I need to have a cargo trailer just to get them in the woods. They're
A lot of work.
the boxes would be about 24, 25 inches deep overall, maybe 26 inches, and they're roughly about 6.5 by 6.5, and I would build them out of just 1/4-inch Luon because I just wanted to get them as light as possible. They didn't stay good in the weather, but our weather's changed a lot too. Like it used to be, you'd put a trap out and there'd be snow and you wouldn't worry about if you had plywood that wasn't treated or anything. It was only out in the woods for a few weeks. I'd take them in every time and it was sitting in snow. But the last 4 years now, in December we've had these rainstorms. Yeah, I mean, I come back from trapping. It was her and I guess. Yeah, I remember when we come back, was it just before Christmas a few years ago? When we had that big storm in December. We lost power for a week. I don't know how long you lost it up here. We were coming down the T-Loss Road, heading out of the woods, heading back for Christmas, basically.
Yeah, it was Christmas Eve.
Yeah, we were way up by Big Eagle and Chamberlain. It was snow, and then it turned to slush. And then once we got down below, you got in the lowland down below Chamberlain, back to the Golden Road, it was like 70, 80-mile-an-hour winds and just torrential downpours. And it was, by the time we got down there, it was like 8 o'clock at night. And it was just before Christmas, like Christmas Eve or the day before. So nobody was in the woods. It was just us, it seemed like.
Roads weren't plowed.
Yeah, roads weren't plowed. And then it went to rain, which was no big deal. But it was like a monsoon. If you go from the T-Loss Road now, if you go from the Golden Road to the T-Loss Road, there's a stretch up there about 5 or 10 miles. You'll see all the trees that are all falling down still. They just clip the ends of them off to open up the road. There's like a cut on the left. It's not even a cut. It looks like a clear cut, but it was just from that storm. Well, we came out of the woods that night with all them trees down, and all I had was my electric chainsaw.
Like the road was impassable.
Yeah.
If you did not have a chainsaw,
I think there was
you would've been-
150 trees from the T-Loss gate to the Golden Road. And I'm like, I can't cut all these out.
So we
I'm like, my
started
battery's
choosing
going to die. I'm
which-
like, I can cut about a cord of wood with this
Yeah.
thing, but I didn't have my gas saw in the truck. I started driving over them as much as I could with my Tacoma, my old Tacoma. I remember I bent the fender in on it.
Scratched it, dented it.
I mean, it was a woods truck anyways, but we got out somehow. But I told her, I'm like, well, it'll be a miracle if we get out of the woods tonight. We might be sleeping in the truck tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had that weird weather in
Yeah.
December, so.
We've had I don't know if it's the same winter or another week during that same winter where we went back to check traps and some of the traps were completely like floating.
Yeah,
Because there
just
was so much
water
rain
in the
in the
woods.
woods.
Yeah, so it's been weird the last few years.
Which
This
isn't
year it wasn't
conducive
too
to marten
bad.
and fisher trapping, but
Be global warming, huh?
Yeah, but to answer your question, Lee, no, they work. They're just a pain. It's been in some ways it's been a little bit nice because the price of furs since about 2014 it's crashed and it's never really come back. There was a year I remember maybe it was 2012 or 13. I think that year, back then I'd sell all my fur to the fur market, and my brother and I were doing it. We were doing it, make a little extra money too, And I think that year I averaged like $170 for Fisher. But I sold one that was $235 to the auction in Canada, and then it crashed after that, and it's never come back. And that's kind of what's nice about doing this stuff now, is if you get, I don't know if it'll ever happen in our lifetime, but if you just get some type of people using these products again, all that stuff will come back,
I don't know why they don't. I don't know why fur isn't that popular.
It's just anti. It's like we had an order yesterday from California.
No. Oh, the Gimlet one?
And we can't sell anything in California. We do an online business, so it's Maine Wild Harvest Company, but we sell all our stuff through Etsy, which is, I guess it's
It's a craft sales platform of
yeah.
sorts.
I know what
it's
that
it's
is.
So you
fairly
can't sell fur to California.
No,
No,
so
you
there's
can't
this
ship it.
law that exists in
Yeah.
California. They passed
About
a
2
few years
years
ago
ago.
called AB 44, and you can't sell fur, you can't ship fur.
Yeah. And you can't even I believe if you have a mountain lion mount in your house in California, you can't even possess it anymore since that law. I mean, they're crazy in
they're
California.
crazy over
you
there.
know.
They got some
They
stringent
almost
laws.
did it in Colorado last year and it didn't pass.
They got some strange laws in California. Just a little off topic, but back when they were having the wildfires, they were trying to send some fire trucks down from Washington or Oregon or something. They wouldn't let them in because they wouldn't meet emissions. Can you imagine?
I know.
Really?
They were going down to put the fires out, and they wouldn't let them into state because they wouldn't meet them.
Yeah.
Lee, you can't fix stupid.
No.
No.
What I was going to ask you, Brian, was what year did the pine marten peak? Was that around 2013 or 14?
I mean, they're still. See, the thing with pine marten is if you look at the catch data over the years, you'll see it'll go. It'll just go up, down, up, down, up, down in a 2-year cycle just around the beaches, basically. So on the years where there's a lot of beach nuts, just like bear bait, and the bears don't want to go into the bait as much. Well, those pine marten don't need to go into. Usually, if you're trapping fish or marten, you're using pieces of beaver meat for bait. You could be using a muskrat carcass. Some people might use some fish, some mackerel or something like that. But you could use partridge or rabbit or anything. Beaver meat's about the best bait you can get usually because it's pretty oily kind of, and even when it's cold weather, it's kind of still greasy and has an odor to it. So if you're trapping marten in December and it's 5 degrees out, your bait's frozen blocks. You want it to try to give off some odor, but they're just like a bear on a bear bait. If they don't need the natural food, they're not going to go in your trap, So on the years with beaches, you'll see the catch rates are historically about half of what they are on the other year. So I usually when I trap marten and fisher, I only do it on the even years now, and that's because there's no beaches in the woods, and you're usually when I ran a line around here years ago, we used to trap from Forks to Jackman and stuff before I started going north, which was around 2012, probably 11 or 12. On those back then, I used to trap every year, and you would have to do about twice the effort to catch the same. I always said there was an old trapper named Jerry Braley. He's still around, but he always told me that if you put out a marten trap and you are doing what you should be doing and you're putting them in the right spots, you should be able to catch a marten 1 out every 5 traps, every 5 stops. On the off years, it would be 1 out every 10, And the thing with marten and fisher, and it doesn't really matter if it's marten, fisher, or coyotes or anything, they use the same areas in the woods that, you always talk about your 10%, the buck
Right.
rule that they inhabit or use maybe 10% of their overall habitat. They spend 90% of their time in 10% of their habitat. Fur is almost the same way. They're real edge creatures. So that's the thing that trapping always taught me a lot is I would be out looking for marten sign or whatever, and I'd see a buck tracker. I'd be tracking a buck, and I'd see where marten and fisher were going down through because, you tracked a buck down in between 2 cuts, and he went right down through the buffer. Marten and fisher are doing the same exact thing. You look down, they went right through here too. A coyote, you come up to the top of a knob in the road, and a coyote crossed right there, right at the peak of the land or right at the bottom.
Yeah.
Halfway up the side hill, they don't really go very much, but they go in the valley or they go up top, and marten and fisher do the same thing. Or if you look on the side of a mountain and you see 2 green growth buffers coming down off it, because when they cut, they wouldn't cut right to the stream. That's usually the little saddle or depression that the stream will run through. All your marten and fisher go through the same country. So as long as you put your traps in those areas where they travel, you'd be successful at it.
Do they still have a 25 limit on pine marten?
Yeah, it's 25. It used to, I don't know what year that was, and they put a limit on them. And there used to be 10 fisher, and maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago, it bumped it up to 25. Yeah. Because once they came out with those exclusion boxes, fur it was like a double whammy. Nobody wanted to re-gear and retool and build all these boxes, especially guys who have been doing it for years and years, and they didn't think they were going to work. And the fur wasn't worth anything. So, where I trapped the last 6 years, I've seen one trapper. And back in that same area before 2014, before exclusion boxes, there used to be 5, 6, 7 marten trappers, all right amongst ourselves competing with each other,
Yeah. Huh.
And now nobody's really doing it, So I think the fisher population has really exploded because of it. And now with that, I think it's hurt the marten population. They don't, do real well together. And then they've been logging so bad in some areas too. I think it's starting to hurt the population too.
What year did you sell your business, Hal? Down the road.
2013, yeah.
So it was probably 2013. You were doing the ladies' bear hunt there. And I can remember I brought Christine up. And so we were sitting over a bear bait. And I don't know if I ever told you this story,
Probably,
but I wish I had filmed the whole thing. I saw a pine marten come hippity-hopping through the woods, and it went over to the bait site, and it grabbed a white powdered sugar donut, took it over and put it at the base of a spruce tree, and then I didn't see him anymore. He was gone. So didn't think anything. I never even filmed or anything. I had a camera with me. Well, then maybe, I don't know, half hour, an hour later, a squirrel comes hopping along through the woods, heads over to the
You
bait
told me
barrel,
this, yeah.
headed over to the bait barrel, but when he was going over towards it, he saw that white sugar donut over at the base of that tree.
I know.
He went over to grab that donut, and
that marten come
just
down
like
and got
that pine marten came right down. He was baiting squirrels.
Baiting squirrels, yeah.
That's learned behavior. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they're neat
They've got some intelligence.
Yeah, and marten, I like trapping all this stuff, but marten are just so pretty,
Yeah.
and they're just neat critters. Their fur is so soft, And the nice thing about trapping, using Connie bear style traps, everything's dead, so you show up 98% of the time anyways, your trap functioned right and it killed the animal pretty quickly. And when we see it, it's frozen solid, dead. You don't have to dispatch it, it's just like it's an easy way to introduce people to trapping too, versus seeing a raccoon in a foothold or a coyote in a foothold and having to dispatch it. It's marten and fisher trapping. It's just, I always just figured it was another way to spend more time in the woods.
Yeah, and then they don't live forever either.
And you got
everything's a renewable resource, anyways. And
they've been pulling teeth from them from now for quite a while, and it's interesting. We caught one, a female, one of the ones you trapped a few years ago, and I forget how old it was. It was like 6 or 7.
I think it was 7.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
So they're probably like any small mammal. They can live fairly old. Most of the ones you catch are juveniles.
Yeah.
Probably half your catch every year.
Yeah.
You got to be careful trapping them because you can over trap them real easy because they have all the mustelid family animals, which are your weasel family, your otter, your weasel, fisher, marten, stuff like that. They have a delayed implantation basically, so they give birth in the spring. Well, pretty close to starting here, pretty quick. They'll be giving birth in the next few weeks, and they go out and within 2 weeks of giving birth, they'll get rebred, but then it doesn't get implanted until 9 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird.
Bears are on the same kind of a deal.
Yeah.
They breed in June, and
so if you
they don't until they go in the den, whatever shape they're in, they say controls how many little ones they might have.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you trap a lot of females, you're actually trapping the next year's litter at the same time,
Right.
potentially,
Yeah.
So you can over trap them easy too, but as long as you manage them good, it's just a sustainable, renewable resource, And there's everything these days. There's nobody doing it, so there's an abundance of everything, which is good and bad.
Hi, Hal here, host of the Big Woods Bucks podcast. we're excited to announce our partnership with the most respected and recognized land company in the Northeast, Christmas and Associates Land Company. Owners Dan and Mark Christmas are two upstate New York natives with deep roots in the Adirondacks and Tug Hill Plateau, as well as two of the most passionate big woods hunters you'll meet. Whether it's newly constructed camp surrounded by state wilderness or family getaway, their team of experienced land guides are the best at matching folks with a perfect land track at an affordable price. They even provide financing. Christmas Land Guides will provide full land tours using ATVs, snowmobiles, and even snowshoes so that you can scout every acre. Christmas Land and Camp staff also help you construct the camp you've always dreamed of using our in-the-house master builders. For over 35 years, no one in New York State has provided more big buck properties and family hunting camps to hundreds of folks who love the woods than Christmas and Associates Land Company. Dan and Mark and the whole company remain dedicated to wise land conservation and treating everyone they meet like family. Always available 7 days per week unless there's fresh tracking snow. Call 800-229-7843 or visit Land and Camps on Facebook or go to landandcamps.com.
What else you got, Cassie? Chaga.
Before we go from trapping, I think it's important, like you said, and you said as well, that it's a renewable resource.
Sure.
And I think there's such a negative connotation still to this day with trapping. I think a long time ago, before Brian and I were alive, that trapping was more accepted than it currently is. I think a lot of people have the concept in that trapping is that you're just doing it out to kill, and that you don't do anything with the animal. And it's like that fur is so purposeful.
You want some of the best meat you ever had? Beaver meat. I swear, we'll take beavers and we won't do it to all of them in the spring because we're just too busy. But some of the beavers that we'll trap in the spring, we'll grind that up into burger or whatever and make lasagna or spaghetti sauce. It'll be the best spaghetti sauce, the best burger you've ever had.
I never ate the beaver, but
unbelievable. Yeah.
Tommy Drew here in town there, he said, you want to try something good, take this right here. And he gave me a beaver liver. And the liver is pretty big on a beaver, the size of the animal. Yeah. That was the best liver I ever had in my life.
It'd be good feed for your dogs and stuff like that too. It'd be the best,
I always remembered that. It was the best.
My grandfather always ate beavers when he trapped them. One of the things that you touched on, Cassie, too, and I think this bears repeating, I tell people all the time that I bump into that if they think that hunting is inhumane, it's the same thing with trapping. You said now, especially with those corny bear traps, probably the best death that animal could hope for is to get caught in a corner bear and like that, and it's over. That. Any other death he's going to experience is going to be worse. It's the same thing if you hunt deer. The best death that deer can hope for is a bullet. Anything else is worse than that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's not getting a deer
it's not
getting
inhumane.
Chased by a coyote.
It's the most humane way that they can go.
Yeah.
Right. No, it certainly is. And I think there's just still, like, I wish there was more widespread education, not just amongst the general population, but like to hunters and fishermen, because there's so many that deer hunt or that fly fish that are anti-trapping.
Yeah, I know.
Which is crazy because
we're educating them right now, ain't we?
That's my goal. I hope that people are more willing to be open to understand that trapping isn't what you think it is. The methods that we use are ethical and that it's a quick kill. We use the fur that we harvest. And also when
fur
for beavers.
Is so good. I mean, for so many products. It really is, yeah.
But like the other thing, like I think is really important to recognize is that if you're a hunter, you should also support trapping. Because if you hunt ducks, if you hunt deer, those are all...
It's all tied in.
Right.
I mean, it's all just nature.
Raccoons, coyotes, those are all things that go after, young deer, that go after baby ducks. And so there's such a balance. And like, I think that's why trapping is so important to provide sustainability to wildlife, is that if we are trapping, then we're ensuring conservation of that animal, because you can have an overabundance too. And if you don't have trappers, then you're not maintaining that population healthy or the habitat in a good way.
Yeah, we're supposed to be stewards of the animals. But the other thing about keeping the any herd balanced is Mother Nature is cruel, and any overpopulation of animals, Mother Nature's
Sooner or
stepping
later,
in, giving
yeah.
them some disease, or
Right.
Yeah.
whatever, rabies and
And
whatever it is, and then it's going to be a bad death for a lot of them.
And for like predator management, I mean, I know you guys hound a lot of coyotes, but if you're a good coyote trapper, you can go out in 2 or 3 weeks and kill as many coyotes with traps as you guys will go and do an entire winter if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, not every trapper can do that, but once you get, you know, successful at it and you duplicate that success, and if you want to be a hard worker, that's the other thing of that trapping that a lot of people don't realize either, is that you can't just go out and catch fur for the day and then come home and, you know, sit there and watch TV or whatever, have a beer or whatever you want to do. If you go catch all that stuff, then you got to go home and deal with it all. You know,
Yeah.
you got to utilize the fur. So
So look here, I got a plan for you for this fall. You guys are going to come up, stay at remote camp like a honeymoon, and you're going to trap all the coyotes.
trap
in
all
there,
the coyotes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good plan.
If I didn't have a bunch of other businesses going, I might be able to do that. Yeah. There's a reason why I stopped guiding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or guiding as much. We'll see.
All right. Chaga next.
Chaga.
It's for what's good for what ails you, right?
Literally. I
You
mean,
introduced me to chaga.
Yeah.
I never tried chaga until you started doing it.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's if you just research it too, anybody can go on and figure it out. I mean, there's a lot of research with it, how it's
Dab's iced
medicinal,
tea, chaga
you know?
iced tea
right.
contraption.
I had it in coffee. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
first time I had it. It was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I like it anyway, but my favorite one was, and we got in the kick of it, was at night having a hot tea with it.
Yeah.
And I always drink everything, tea, coffee, everything was always black. But for some reason with my hot tea chaga, Deb would put maple sugar in it
Yeah.
and a little half and half.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds
That's some
good.
nice.
Yeah, it's good with honey too. I don't know if you've had chaga
No.
tea with honey.
Never
That
did
adds a
that.
little
Yeah.
bit different of a spin on it, but it still gives you that like sweetness
Yeah.
like the maple does.
Even by itself, it's not. It's just real
Oh,
mild.
I
you
love
know?
it plain. Just
Yeah, it has it's got its, what does it taste like? And it doesn't taste like anything else. It tastes like it's chaga. You
Right.
know,
I
it's
just
got
throw
a-
one of the tea bags in the French press in my coffee.
Yeah.
that way he still gets his coffee.
You gotta have your coffee in the morning, you know.
Probably no caffeine in chaga, right?
No,
I don't
no,
think so. No,
it's caffeine
yeah.
free.
Yeah.
It's full of antioxidants.
Yeah.
And like you said, whatever ails you, like if you take it religiously as like a cup or two a day, it can aid in lowering your blood pressure. It can aid in digestion. It can.
I gotta start taking more of it.
Isn't it supposed to be good for your joints too?
Yes.
I had a guy that I worked with. He had a hip pointer, and his hip was bothering him all the time. Somebody turned him on to chaga, and he claims that it helped.
Yeah, that
Inflammation.
right. Inflammation is the other big one for chaga.
They said that that old Aussie guy they found there frozen the ice over there in Sweden or something, that in his little leather pouch
Chaga.
he had chaga in that.
I believe
Really?
it. Yeah.
So they knew back then that it was good for something.
yeah.
I did not know that.
They
you think
say
about,
in
like-
nature for every
Ailment.
ailment
yeah.
or disease, there's a cure for it in nature.
What do you think about like aspirin
Makes
and
sense.
stuff? Doesn't it all come that is it birch or is it poplar type?
No, I think it's actually from aspen trees, but the Indians used to
So poplar.
chew on popple bark and
Yeah.
aspen bark, whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
Indians
Yeah.
used to chew on the bark.
I mean, a lot of it all derives from that, you know. And there's people now that supposedly big business, or it's going to become big businesses. They found a way to farm chaga.
Yeah,
There's
that's a whole
like
new.
multi-million-dollar business.
I'm sure it takes a while.
Maybe there's some entrepreneurs.
It does. It
that
takes
wanna-
like up to 6 years, but all of
Yeah.
our chaga is all wild harvested
Yeah.
in the northern part of Maine for the most part.
Yeah.
Some out this way in Jackman, but a lot of it's up north. And you can find chaga on.
You find them next to signposts a lot.
We have a good
Same
picture
type
of
of
that.
ground, you know. Yellow birch, some Maine.
Yellow birch doesn't mind damp weather, damp
Right, exactly.
ground.
So we find them on yellow birch 90% of the time, and that's the ones that we harvest them from. You'll see them on white birch, but we don't typically. I mean, I think
And it goes a long ways too. You find a softball sized chunk if you're just using it in your
Oh, yeah.
at home. That'll last you a long
Me
time.
and Deb usually like a chunk, like a football size chunk, maybe not even that big, but that'll last a year for us.
Oh, for sure.
I just dry it. I chop it up with my axe into chunks, and then
Yeah,
she'll,
when it's fresh, when you first get
yeah,
it.
and then she'll
It's still
take
softer.
a couple of good sized chunks and boil it in a kettle, and she'll she'll dump that out. It's black, and then put more water in until it starts lightening up, and then she'll chuck it. But out of a few of them big chunks, you might get 3 or 4 gallons or something,
Right.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
chunks go such a long ways. Like
Yeah.
our tea bags, you can use twice, and it has like the fine ground chaga in it. And those, I mean, you get
Yeah, it's almost like a powder.
a fine ground
Basically, yeah,
powder.
real
The
fine.
1 tea bag's 2 cups.
Yep. And then
Yeah,
the
you reuse
chaga,
them,
the chaga chunks, you get way more out of
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
like you just said,
As long
that
as you don't mind doing it like you're doing it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tea bags
Little
are
more
just
work.
a convenience
It is.
thing.
She just puts it in milk jugs, used milk jugs, and
Yep.
puts it down in the downstairs fridge, and we
It keeps
bring a
about a week
gallon at
in
a
the
time
fridge, right?
upstairs. Yeah.
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 I was going to ask you that, like if you're storing it after you've boiled it and got it ready to drink, does it go bad after a certain?
I kind of just use the rule of thumb, like keep it about 7 days in
Yeah.
the fridge,
A week in the fridge and
Oh, we'll keep it more than that.
Well,
in
yeah.
the-
oh, do you?
Yeah, she'll.
I'm
'cause
sure it'll
she'll-
be fine.
When she does it, she'll make 4 or 5 gallons, and
And then
it's
keep
probably
it for
a
a month.
month's worth.
Yeah.
But in the refrigerator it keeps.
Yeah.
I was wondering
good
if
to
you,
know.
I don't think there's anything in it that would spoil. Or
'Cause
whatever.
we've just never experienced.
No,
you
I've
know,
hit, I
beyond
mean, the
week,
only thing
but-
that could happen is you would see mold in it, So,
Yeah. So
just
we
like
got to
any
talk
natural
about what we mentioned earlier there about, because I didn't realize that either. I want to talk about help the guys out with their taxidermy
taxidermy.
and caping out their.
Caping out the deer.
The
Don't
deer
cut
heads.
down the back of your deer head.
Say that again.
When you're caping out your deer for a mount, don't cut up the back of the neck unless you're packing
Like
it
I
out of the
always do.
woods. Yeah. I mean, it's not the end of the world. The only time it really matters is if you shoot one like expanded, like early season deer,
Yeah.
in
or
September.
down south.
Yeah,
or
or
something
down
where they
to
got thin
Texas
hair.
or something like that. You
Yeah.
know, if you got real short haired deer like that and you cut all the way down the back of the neck when you're caping it out, it gets to be a lot harder to hide those stitches. And you can do it, but there's more work involved,
Yeah.
And, but if you're gonna put a mount on the wall, why would you put a big slice in it if you don't have to? Is the way I look at it, and it's just more work. I actually started charging people this year extra for if it comes in tubed. I don't charge them any extra, but if it comes cut down the back of the neck, then I charge them extra, because I'll have an extra hour or stitching into that, and if I get a deer cape that's not tubed, that's cut down the back of the neck, I'll sit there on the table, on the desk, whatever, and I measure it out. I put my hash marks about every inch down the whole thing, and I stitch it back together into a tube before I even put it on the form, because that way, like I was showing you, if you put your deer cape on that form and it's cut down the back of the neck, a lot of the taxidermists try to get on the biggest form as they can get, and that makes the neck look the biggest. But then when you look at the brisket, nothing's lined up. The hair patterns, the arm pattern, that the white brown on the deer leg there is all the way up on the side of the deer form. And some people never catch on to it, but for someone that looks at deer all the time, then I look at that, I'm like, well, it's got a big neck, but everything's wrong on it, So that's, that kind of prevents me from doing that, because
Right.
if I've got that cape tubed, I can't fit it on a big, I stretch them, and stuff as best you can. You try to get on the biggest form you can. And a lot of that depends on what type of tan you do with it, plus how you groom it while the mount's drying. But you don't need to cut down the back of a deer cape.
That's good
Unless you're
info.
packing it out of the woods. You got it on a gambrel. Why would you ever have to? So if you go on the Facebook page, I got a little, 2-minute video maybe, showing you exactly how to cape it out, tubing it on Northeast Custom Taxidermy.
Northeast Custom Taxidermy. Get on there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look, because I've caped 1 or 2 deer in my life,
Just a couple, right?
and they've all been cut up the
Up the back. It's not the end of the world. With long hair deer, you'll never see it. It's just more work,
The only thing
I love the brisket ones. I get a few once in a while. I had one this year that was cut down the back of the neck. Then it was cut halfway up the front of the neck too. I'm like, well, why'd you do that one?
The only thing that I knew a long time ago, even probably way back years and years ago, that was don't cut around the horn. So the antler, at the burr, don't use a knife, because it makes all them little cuts.
You can.
Pound
It
it
just
off with a
depends.
screwdriver.
See, like now, I started using a screwdriver again this year a little more than I
Works
used
good.
to.
I do it with moose
With
and
a
everything.
hammer, yeah.
You can
I was used to.
pry
I do
it.
it with a screwdriver, and I would half the time I'd jab myself with it. I put a screwdriver actually right into me right there the other day, but But yeah, you can take a screwdriver if you put it up against the burr and you just tap it around.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Work. But nowadays with the Havilland blades we got, especially I forget which one it is. Maybe it's the XT blade that's kind of flimsier, and the A blade is stiffer. The XT one will get like right up underneath them burrs. But yeah, as long as you're careful about it. I mean, if you've only ever done one and you try using a knife, you're probably going to zigzag it like what you said.
Yeah.
If you do it all the time, then you're used to it. But you'll see in that video I used a knife. But a screwdriver actually does work really good. I should show that. And then there's some people want you to do like a short Y. Some people do a long Y. Some people do a T. This year I tried something new. I started doing 7s. And so I did most of the year. I keep this year. I did a 7 just so when I put them together this year, I'll see if I like it or not. And if I don't, I'll go back to what I was doing. But I think I'll like the 7 better because if you do a 7 cut, you cut in between the two burrs, you cut straight across, and then you come down about a half an inch below one of those cuts, and you just cut angle to the middle and then right down to where your cut is. So then when you stitch it up, you don't have to sew up any intersection. It's straight runs,
Wait a minute now. So if you tube it.
Yeah. So if you tube it, you wouldn't do that because you just tube it down. But then your taxidermist is going to
tube it down
to the base of the neck.
Yeah, but a lot of times I take it right off the whole head myself. And
yeah, you're caping off the skull and then
usually
it takes up less freezer space until you get it there.
Well, I keep my horns that have looking around there, and then
and you usually probably do a short Y incision kind of.
Yeah.
You kind of come down a little bit of a Y,
Yeah.
And then you come down. So when you come down, instead of going all the way back the neck, tube it, cut the head off, and then do your Y. When you're going to cape it off the skull, do your little Y like you normally do, and just come down low enough so that you can pull that hide over the skull. So the closer you get to the back of the skull, the shorter incision you can make down the back of the neck to peel it all over. And so you want it when you pull that hide down. Sometimes it's tough if you got the rack, you got to jockey the hide around it. But you want to try to cut that skull off, that head off, that carcass as close to the back of the skull as you can get, because then you can make a shorter incision on the back of your mount. So your whole back of your mount never needs to be stitched. So when you tube it,
though, so you got to cut the skull. You got to cut the skull off before you can get down over the face.
Yeah.
So you go in there and you.
So you just peel it down. You get down as low on the neck as you can. Cut it off just like you normally would to butcher your deer. And you set, and then you pick it up, put it on your table. You get your head and your cape there, and then just tube it off. Then just if you're taking it right off the head, since you know how to do that,
you make your Y cut and then
just
put the flap forward.
Yeah.
And then take the other down and then cut in behind.
Yeah, so you'll come down the center of your Y cut like you were going to go down the back of the neck, do the same exact thing, but just stop at the back of the skull. Once you get, all of a sudden, you're over the meat of the skull that you left there.
Yeah.
You just need to come down a couple inches so you can peel it around what you left and peel it all down over the back of the skull, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then cut the skull in the back, but you got to get the whole skull plate out, don't you, to get down the face?
You'll basically invert it. So once you do your Y and you come down like 6 inches, if you cut that neck off close enough to the back of the skull, you only need to come down about 6 inches and you're basically inverting it itself and just peeling it right down over the whole skull. The same way. And then you're going to give it to your taxidermist just like that, tubed,
Got to do a little video on that.
Yeah. Actually, I've got that too on there.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do have it cutting off the skull, don't I? One on there.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, because we did 2 this fall.
Yeah, I did a moose a few years ago. I should show that in the woods one day, the moose that we killed together there.
Yeah.
That's actually a good video. I should take that sometime, like quartering too. That's one thing I got good at was quartering all the caribou hunts I did in Alaska.
Yeah.
Is I got really good at, when I was just doing moose here and I'd quarter a moose or two, and then you wouldn't do it for a year. But there was 2 years in a row there. I did 12 caribou hunts in the fall in Alaska. And you got good at quartering stuff,
Good and fast.
Fast, yeah. Half the time a plane was coming to get you or something,
Yeah.
And, but I got a good system. I'd pose them up for a picture like I normally do, get them up on their legs, and then they'd be sitting there. Then I would just start my Y cut right down behind the base of the antlers, go right down the whole top of the, caribou, get all that. Then I'd lay them on one side, do one whole side, flip them over, do one whole side. You know, it was really good. Yeah. The only thing I hated to hear is if I asked them what they wanted for a mount, is if they said life size instead of shoulder. So please don't say life size. Yeah. I had a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to do a moose once.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Didn't know you got that one out whole out of the woods.
Got it out whole, but that was,
Yeah.
it would have been way easier to, I had 1,000 feet of rope, 300 feet of cable, and drove my truck down into the back of the cut as far as I could, and still was a little bit short. Luckily, it was downhill and wet, because me and one of my guides had to grab a hold of that moose, and we had to drag it about, 10 or 15 feet to get it. And I had shivs in about 6 different trees at different angles, but we did get him out whole, and he made a life-size moose mount out of it. Put him in a plastic bed liner, a Ford bed liner.
Yeah.
That's how we got him out, because he didn't want to pull any hairs off it. It was different. I wouldn't want to do it again, though.
Yeah,
It was
moose
a
would
lot
be.
of work.
I always wondered that. You know, I haven't done a life-size moose. I had a moose hide I took in this fall from one of Jared's moose there, and the guy wanted to hold. It wasn't a cow; it was a small bull, I guess.
Yeah.
But he there was a sub permit. He wanted to hide tan, basically, to have that. And the other guy was having a Euro done of the skull. And I sent it out there last week with all that stuff. We'll see how it comes out. But boy, I had a client a couple of years ago that wanted same thing. He wanted it tan, but not for like a throw, not for the back of a couch or something. He wanted to be able to make like chaps and stuff. He wanted to have it leather tan.
Oh, I had a guy do that too once. He had it mounted, and then I took the back of the hide. He wanted the whole hide, and he ended up making 2 nice leather vests, one for him and one for his father.
It's real thick. Now, did you take it the whole hide? See, we had it was a decent sized bowl.
No, I took it in 2 pieces.
See, I did it in 2 pieces too, which was funny is I told him it was going to be too heavy to pack, and we did it in 2 pieces, and somehow I wound up with both the pieces in my pack at the same time as we. That was with Ben there a couple years ago. Yeah, it was about a mile pack, and but this one came out whole in 1 piece. Yeah, and it was big. It took me about 2.5 hours to flesh it. But I think it'll come out pretty nice from the tanner. Yeah, he's just going to have it for like a throw for the back of a couch or, a railing in a house.
They make a nice fur.
But I can imagine this one was a pretty good sized bull body-wise. And Jared said it was over a mile. Maybe it was about 2 miles they had to pack that one. But that's one heavy pack, a whole moose skin. But I wouldn't, the caribou I used to, if they did life-size, I'd dorsal skin them. So you skin all the way down the top of the back, and then you're basically peeling it all over.
Yeah.
And then you're quartering it as you go, but you skin from the antlers to the base of the tail, and then just start peeling it all on one side,
When I had my life-size deer done, that's what I did.
That's what I did.
Dick told me to do that. It's easy. Then you can just drop the form right inside.
Exactly. Like Cruzy's life-size deer that I did for him a few years ago.
Yeah.
He had already gutted it, of course, like we would up here, because we want to take it out and weigh it and see if it's over 200, and his was. But then I had him dorsal skin it. So I had to stitch up the gut incision, and then I had him dorsal skin it, so that way I could put a little over the form that way, and it worked pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before I forget, Cassie, you got to give people a website to get your Allagash stuff here, your warmers.
That's important.
Yeah, they got to know where to get this stuff.
What is it? Because we have our general website, which is mainwildharvestco.com.
Yeah.
And if you go to that page, it will give you a discount code, and then it will link you to our actual Etsy page, because the Etsy is like our sales platform.
Yeah.
But if you type in Maine Wild Harvest Company in Google, or you type in
Well, they
Allagash
want to go there
warmers,
first to get their discount code.
Yes,
All right.
Yeah.
that's important.
But yeah, if you look on Etsy, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Maine Wild Harvest.
Allagash
hand warmers, yeah.
.com.
And then all our furs too. We've been selling a lot of pelts this morning. We just shipped out 5 orders to Oregon. A Native American guy out there called, and he was making hair ties with them, like native hair ties or something. He was going to cut them all up into pieces.
So you're selling some furs too for different purposes.
Yeah, a lot of pelts. We originally got started because we had an outlet to sell it. Once the fur market tanked, I'm like, geez, it was kind of sad to get rid of it for those prices. So I started having it tanned, and I'd sell it to clients and stuff, guiding clients.
Yeah.
And then we came up with this idea. But then we got we'd sell everything we trapped and we're out of stock. So now we started buying fur too. So and I'm also a tagging agent now too. So if you need to get furs tagged, I can tag fur.
Oh, good.
Yeah, right at the taxidermy shop. And
Yeah.
Can you get rid of, like guys, they take, a lot of times they do it with alder, but they make a loop.
Yeah,
and,
beaver hoops.
do your beaver. Do those sell well? I would think they would
Yeah,
because they look beautiful.
I would. I've got a bunch that are ready. I just haven't had the time. We've been kicking ourselves the last couple of years because I got a new shop that I'm trying to get it finished up now. It's all weather tight now. Should have electricity here in the next week or two and get insulation, and that'll make life a lot easier. I've been doing the taxidermy downstairs, but in the basement now we'll have the new shop and we'll have more area for all that stuff. And I got to build a steam box because I had done probably 2 or 3 hoop beavers
That
We'll
were
get-
fine, and they
yeah,
came
just
out
for
great.
ourselves. We had one real big one, like a super blanket, and it was, I don't know, it was like 77 inches, which means it was, if you take your beaver pelt and you board it, that's length plus width. You know, that's a pretty big beaver. I think it was probably 55 pounds.
What's the best wood to use for one of those hoops?
I used poplar when I did it, and it worked good. I tried it a few times. I just took a carrot peeler and peeled all the bark off, and then I soaked it in water for a few days. I had a PVC tube. And the problem is that the smaller beavers, which look really nice hooped and they don't take up as much space on your wall, you know, they're like a regular pitcher. But then you got to bend that poplar a much tighter circle, you know, and anytime you get a branch junction or something, they would snap on me. So I got to build a steam box to be able to do it. But yeah, they would.
I've seen
people
them with
love
alder.
I would think
buying
alders
those, you know.
would be better. would
I've
bend
seen them with
better.
alder before.
Maybe. I just like the width. I like the small width of them. The poplar. If you get the young
Oh
poplar
yeah,
widths,
yeah.
you
You
know.
can, yeah, they carry the width out.
Yeah.
all the
the
way around, so it's
yeah.
like nice and even. That's the look
Yeah.
that.
Then I was using they look really nice.
I ended up a few years ago. It didn't work out, but Brett was guiding for me up in Zone 4. We ended up, it was last thing in the evening, and there was probably like just enough legal time to get into this beaver bog, and I knew there was a bunch of moose sign in the back of it. So I get up, and it was one of those ones the beavers had built the dam like right out into the road, and it was about 5 feet high, so you could just about see above it. So I get up there and I start calling, and I told the client, I said, I'm pretty sure I can hear a moose back there. And then it was getting closer. I'm like, yeah, there's a moose coming. Before the moose can get there, a big beaver comes over, and he doesn't want me there, and he doesn't want me. So he's slapping his tail, and about every 2 or 3 minutes, I'm getting soaking wet. But I can't do anything different because the moose is coming. So we killed the moose, and then I told Brett, because was guiding on a different road for me. He likes to trap. I said, I want you to go in there next
Get them
spring
beavers out of there.
and get that beaver. I said, I'd like to have, a hoop
road
made
mat.
out of that.
Oh,
just
yeah,
because
yeah.
it would be like a memory because
yeah.
that beaver soaked me, for the last half hour one evening while I was trying to get a moose. I wanted him, but it just didn't work out. But
Yeah, they look beautiful. Another thing, that's the thing with beavers, you can utilize so much is like the tails too. We struggle with a tannery. There was a tannery that were tanning tails and they went out of business, and I can't find anyone. There's 4 or 5 people that do it, that say they do it, and they send us samples, and they're not like the ones we were getting, the actual like leather, like a belt leather,
that guy that was on Mountain Men, the guy from Montana, came up. He used to make knife sheaths out of beaver tails.
Yeah,
I think those are cool.
wallets like Brett's wife there, you guide Brett. His wife was making nice wallets out of them, with a sewing machine.
Yeah.
And
It's a nice leather, huh? Beaver
yeah, oh,
tail.
yeah,
That's
it lasts a
beautiful.
long time
Beautiful
too.
leather,
A
yeah.
lot of people use them on like traditional bows, like the handle, the leather grip. They'll use a beaver tail there, and so there's a lot of uses. I've got a whole freezer full of tails that a year later I have to throw them out because we haven't found anybody to do it. I run out of freezer space. I'm like, well, it looks like we'll just get more tails next spring, But
Hey, before we wind it up, we got to tell a deer story,
all right,
I want you to tell a deer story about you and your brother shooting them big bucks the same day.
Oh yeah, over. When was that? That was a couple years ago. Yeah,
3 years ago, I think.
yeah,
Has it been that long?
yeah. He killed another nice buck
Jeez.
this year. I didn't get one. I only got. That's one thing. I stopped guiding so much so I could go hunting more. That was one of the reasons why I stopped guiding, anyways. And I had done enough of it where I wanted to go use some of my own time for once. And then I started doing taxidermy because I taught myself taxidermy when I was a teenager, basically. But I had always just done it part time for friends and family, And sold my guide business. So, well, I got to do something else. So maybe I'll start taking on more taxidermy. But I hardly hunted this year. I think I
Got to rethink that a little
yeah, I
bit.
got to figure it out. I'm working on it. But he killed another nice buck this year up north. We went to a new area. But a couple of years ago, those ones. I could tell you
It was
the
Thanksgiving
synopsis.
week, wasn't it? Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was the 17th, I think. November 17th or 18th.
Yeah, that's when the season was a little. I think it was the first day, wasn't it?
of
Thanksgiving week, was it? Pretty sure it
yeah,
was.
no,
Maybe
November
not the first
17th,
day.
I think, or 18th. Yeah, we got snow. We didn't have much snow that year.
Was it?
We got snow. I remember just high elevation. It was a Thursday.
Maybe
Because
it
on
wasn't
Monday or
Thanksgiving
Tuesday we
week.
got
It was
snow.
the 17th. It wasn't Thanksgiving.
No, it was a
Week
week
before.
before. Yeah,
Third week.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah, and that was just an area that I had seen a nice buck actually jumped the road in front of me the night, like the year before, in a spot, and so I decided to go into a new area, just a place that I don't know how many people drive by this.
I know.
And nobody even goes in there, you know.
When you told me where you got it, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, everyone drives right
Nobody
by.
would think about hunting there.
No, but I was going back to the lodge one night after guiding, I think, and a nice buck went to go jump the road in front of me. That was the year before, and I think it might have been the same deer.
Yeah.
It was like similar size rack, you know,
Yeah.
similar size body. I'm like, I wonder if that was him, you know, it was in the same spot.
Yeah.
And I got lucky because that was a Thursday. On Tuesday, we got snow, but it was just up high,
Yeah.
like just the top of the mountains. And I went south. I went over towards Greenville and mountain down there, and there was snow up top. And I got on a track, but I ended up going off the mountain off snow, you know. But on Wednesday night, we got, I think there was probably 6-7 inches of snow, good snow.
Yeah.
And Mark went up into an area, and I went to check some areas, and I got lucky. I went down that road. Everybody drives by, and there's a pretty nice buck track.
Rode right off the highway.
Yeah, and everyone just trucks on by it every morning, and I look, and there's a doe track with it, and I don't think, and it was, you know, right at daybreak, and I said, I think I had only went just a little ways in the woods, like 50, 60 yards, and I thought I remember seeing some blood droplets. I said, boy, this swing's going to die here pretty soon, you know, and I probably only tracked that buck for, maybe quarter mile, half mile, not far. And they had started feeding all over. They went up into a cut now it's a big clear cut. So they've hammered the whole place now, but they hadn't done that yet. They had strip cuts probably 10 years before that, and they had grown up into whippets, you know, and there's a lot of feeding there. And they're feeding all over. And I said, man, there were so many tracks. I was just starting to hunt a little bit, but I could kind of tell, you know, I stayed on his track, and I'm like, they got to be laying down here pretty quick. I'm like, and she wasn't, you know, he wasn't chasing her anymore. He was just right on her the whole time. And I jumped him up just a little while after that. He jumped out of his bed and took 3 bounds and stopped and looked back at me. And I actually had I had a peep sight, so I had my binos. And it was the first day I ever took that rifle for a hunt, I think. It was a 35 Remington. I bought a pump and put a peep on because I always hunted with a scope, but I always wanted another peep gun. Just for like those snowy days like that when the snow was still in the trees, you know. And so anyways, I took that gun that day, and so I had my binos, and I looked at him because the track it looked like it was probably 200 or more, but it wasn't a giant track on it. It was a decent stride and a decent stagger, but it wasn't a real big hoof, you know. It was one of those ones that was marginal, but I figured if I got a look at the rack, maybe I'd kill him. So I looked at it real quick, and I see the rack come out beyond the ears, and I was like, well, I might as well shoot him. He looks good enough, you know, and he was 229.
229?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was thick.
He's
But
like Lee Libby. He was big and little dinky feet.
Yeah. It was a 7 point, you know. But the funny thing is that was pretty early in the morning because I hadn't gone very far. And but when I actually shot. I didn't make the best shot on him. That's the only thing I struggle with a peep sight. I don't use them enough. I mean, I've killed deer with them quite a bit, but I stopped using them probably 6 years ago because I had 2-3 years in a row there where I should have had nice bucks, and I took hair off them or whatever, or clean missed them with a peep sight, so I went back to my low power scopes, you know. But I seem to always shoot high, not when I'm at the target range and not when I'm practicing, but when I just pull up and I have to snap shoot, I have a habit of shooting high, it seems like. So I hit that deer high, and I was worried because it looked like I had hit him almost in no man's land. Like when I shot, the buck dropped, And I thought I dropped him right there, and I see him spin, and he got up, and I'm waiting for him to come out, and he never come out. So I was like, good, he must have just fell right up there. So I go running up there. Well, he went out the back of the brush where you were standing, and I could never see him to get another follow-up shot. And I look, and I see the blood, and I'm following for just a little bit. I already knew what happened. I'm like, I hit that deer somewhere up near the spine, but not good enough to put him down, you know? And I thought it was in between the lungs and the spine, basically. I don't think, even when I got him, I never caught lung. So I ended up killing him a mile later, caught him in his bed, and killed him. And but I have a hard time with those peeps for some reason when it comes to, like, I don't know if it's...
Most people that struggle with a peep sight, it's usually they're either trying to shoot it like a buckhorn sight and line two things up.
Because I do find at the range or when I'm practicing, I don't know if it's... I started cutting those stalks down, too, so they fit me with a heavier jacket on. So I don't know, that one I hadn't cut down yet. Every other one I've got now, I've cut half an inch off
That
all
could
of them.
be if the gun don't fit you. And the other thing people do is, you know, like I said, a lot of them try to line it up. They're trying to line something up instead of just putting the bead on. You just look through there and put the bead. And that's where you're going
I just got to shoot it more, I guess.
But the other thing people do is some people have a post, but on a bead, like on a 7600 or something, you should just use the bead and cover your target.
And not look at the back,
And then don't like try to shoot off the top of the bead or something. You just cover it.
That could be it too, maybe.
I think
because
that's
when I sight it in, you're not focused on doing that. That could be.
Yeah. You just cover where it is, and the other key is that just touch it off as soon as it gets where you want it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no room for wiggling.
The neat thing about that day, anyways, I shot that buck early in the morning, and when I started that buck track, it was at daybreak. You know, when I found that track, and I sent my brother an in-reach message, told him where I was. I said, hey, I'm on a decent track, you know, I'll take it and see what happens. And told him it was a marginal track, you know, and he said he was on a really good track. He found one at daybreak too, and about 10 miles away, and told me where he was. And I said, all right, good luck, you know. And so when I killed that buck, when I finally did kill him, I told him, you know, sent him a message that I had hit him, but told him where it was hit, basically. And I knew, it was funny because when I was coming down across the cedar bog, tracking that buck still. I could see all the blood was up high in the brush. You know, I knew exactly where I hit him, and I said, geez, I got to get one into him because he ain't going to die here very quick, you know. And I was going across the cedar bog, and all of a sudden I hear a deer go. And I said, son of a gun, that was him, you know. And so I went running up, and I looked, and another deer had come in. And I said, no, that wasn't him. I said, you know, the buck's still going this way. And I killed him about 200 yards later. He was laying down in some spruce looking the other way. But so once I finally killed him, I told Mark, I said, you know, he had jumped that buck. He was on, I think, twice already. By then, he had sent me some messages that he had jumped him about an hour after he got on him. Didn't see him go. Just saw the jump track, you know. And then about an hour later, he caught a glimpse of him. He jumped in out of his bed again. And he was headed up a mountain. And by then, it was only mid-morning when I got those messages. You know, I was working on getting my deer out of the woods. I ended up dragging him out to a different road. And I told him, I said, well, wherever you wind up, I said, I'll come get you at the end of the day. I said, just stay on him. I said, you got the whole rest of the day, you'd kill him, you know. Well, it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I get a message from him. I said, he headed up top of the mountain, and he was about 4 or 5 miles from the truck already now. I had a pretty good day of it. And he headed up a steep mountain, and he got to the top, and he said the buck was headed over the mountain the opposite way of the truck, and he said, the heck with it. He gave up on it. I said, I don't care where you end up. I sent him a message, just stay on him. I'll come get you, you know. But he gave up on him. And when it was headed down over the backside of the mountain, because he thought it was going to go up there and lay down, it never did. It actually did. He found out a few minutes later. So he gave up on that track, turned and started side hilling it left 50 yards and jumped that buck up. The buck went down over the mountain, just went down 30, 40 yards, dog-legged, went and bedded down like 100 yards before Mark decided to give up on that track. And when he gave up on him, he walked right into him and jumped him up and killed him. Yeah.
Can't make that up.
I know.
No.
I said, and then the funny thing is the one he killed this year, he killed one, was the last day rifle when we were up there.
Yeah.
I got to sneak away for a couple of days. I went up and set up my tent trap out of, and then we deer hunted around the new area.
Yeah.
And he killed a nice buck the last day rifle. He got on a track at daybreak, and it was with a doe, and it had gone down, and he said it kept going through smaller and smaller stuff. He said it had a decent hoof on it. He said, but he could tell after a while it didn't have much of a rack on it. So he said, I'm going to go find something else. So he left that track this year and was headed back to his truck. He walked 200 or 300 yards and walked right into a nice buck. Jumped him out of his bed, and Texas Hard shot him as he was going away and folded him right there, you know. I said, how come every time you leave a buck track, you end up killing the buck, you know? This one wasn't the one he was on like that other one, you know.
Right.
But I said, it's not very often. I said, you just leave a buck track, like you give up on it and then you walk into it. I said, it probably actually helped you, you know, because he come in from, you backdoored him basically, you know. I said, it's probably why you killed him. I said, you might have just jumped him up again and not got a crack at him, you know, if you'd stayed on his track.
Yeah.
I said, but that ain't going to happen very often.
That was the one that had the weird rack, right?
Yeah, it was kind of,
way up high on
it
his
had
head.
like, one was like,
Almost like a spike on
one was
side.
2 points. There's a brow tine with a big spike. And then the other side, I guess, did have 4 points on it, if I remember. And it had like a third pedicle out of the skull when I mounted that
Yeah,
deer.
it was weird.
Yeah. I thought it was quite a bit older than it was, but it was 6.5. The one I killed was 5.5. But it's still a nice old deer.
Hey, that's 2 points connecting, right?
Yeah, that's how. All the ones I've
luck
shot, that's
involved.
how it's been, you know. Yeah.
Never know. If you're in the woods, you might see a buck, right?
You can't shoot them from the truck very often, you know.
That's right. Get in the woods.
Yep. No, that's all it takes.
All right. Well, this is a good conversation. And we learned a little taxidermy. We learned about chaga and hand warmers, and
Can we do something kind of special for the Big Woods Bucks fans?
can do anything you want.
Okay, Brian, I didn't get his approval. I mentioned it,
Uh-oh.
but so we'll find out if he
He's on
approves
the
or not.
spot.
But Brian's known you for a long time, and I've known you for as long as I've known him, and I'm huge fan of you, Hal, and a huge fan of Big Woods Bucks. And
All right, get to it.
we want to give the viewers a 10% off code.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
So
Who
anyone,
signs the bank statements here?
I know, but seriously, like these
Absolutely, yeah, no,
these
we'd love to.
replaced hot hands in my hunting pack.
Yeah.
Because like he tracks, I sit in a stand more often than not.
Yeah.
And instead of going to the store and buying
Yeah.
hot hands and ditched them after 6 hours, I bought, I didn't buy them, but you have these, you buy them once and you have them forever. And so anyway, it's going to be BWB 10 that you'll have to enter, and you can use it on chaga, you can use it on the hand warmers, you can use it on the fur pelts, doesn't matter, whatever it is, and we will keep that code.
Fur pelts too. Huh?
Yes, the fur pelts too.
Uh-oh.
We'll
It's
keep.
getting serious now.
We'll keep the code.
Brian's going, that's my garage. It's going to take a little longer.
They'll keep the code good forever, so there is no expiration date.
All right.
Nice.
So BWB.
Actually, we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Everybody will appreciate it. I think you'll
The
get
pelts
your,
sell out quick.
and your
by the way,
garage is going
honestly,
to get
yeah.
done quicker with all the increased sales.
No, because I lose every time I get orders. I lose track of time to go do something else. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Well.
but it's getting there. I just got to get insulation and power.
All right.
Get some heat pumps in there and start putting deer back together inside of it. Will be nice.
That's a good deal for you.
I got to be able to
Fall
hunt
was
this
here.
fall, so I got to have stuff
Yeah.
done before fall.
Ryan's
yeah.
got to get hunting this fall. And so we got to support the cause and get your hand warmers and your chaga and be ready.
That's right.
And that's on you. They go to,
Etsy, Maine Wild Harvest
when
Company.
they get to the Etsy one, they can get that.
Yeah.
When they find us on Etsy, when they go to checkout.
I
same
think
as
the
anything.
Etsy, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say it's Maine Wild Harvest co.etsy.com
Yeah,
is
they
what the
just-
actual Etsy
So if
page
you
is.
just go to Etsy, then they type in,
Yeah, Etsy, which is ETSY.
right. I
There's
think
a lot of people like, what the heck are you saying, Etsy?
Yeah.
Especially with my accent.
I think most people, even me, heard of that before,
Yeah, last year they had a Super Bowl ad. So I was like, geez, we're selling in the
So
right
they go to
place.
Etsy and then they just type in
Maine Wild Harvest.
Maine Wild Harvest. All right. They'll find you.
I hope so.
All right. Let's support the cause here and let's,
But if we're running out of pelts, we just send a whole truckload to the tannery on Tuesday.
all right. They'll be stocked up.
Yeah.
So get them. All right. Good stuff. And so we'll sign off for now. And once again, support our sponsors. And if you haven't subscribed, ding the bell and all of that. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, wherever else. And till next time, good luck on the trail.